Hello everyone, welcome back to The World Citizen. We hope you attended the riveting and insightful conference we held this past weekend, titled, "Without the Development of All Nations, There Can Be No Lasting Peace for the Planet." We had a phenomenal group of panelists that addressed the growing threat of thermonuclear world war, the blueprint for a new security and economic architecture, and the necessary ideological shifts that must happen in order for these plans to be brought into fruition. Today, in this episode, we will be recapping the April 15 to 16 conference by sharing our favorite panels from each day, Panel 1 on Saturday and Panel 4 on Sunday. The Saturday morning panel of diplomatic and strategic experts elucidated the series of failures and missed opportunities that has brought humanity to the brink of catastrophe and laid out a comprehensive vision for a new world order based on a post-hegemonic global security and development architecture. Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the keynote speaker, explained the history of the International Development Bank from Lyndon LaRouche's original 1975 proposal to this month's Brazil-China summit and the ongoing work to implement this important institution. Connie Rahakundini Bakri from Indonesia discussed the evolving attitudes in the global south, in particular the growing frustration with malign actors in the global north and their uber alles attitude. She also proposed a new non-aligned movement to carry the global south forward into its next phase of development, and that it play a leading role in the design of a new, fair, and equitable security and development architecture. This aligns very well with what Helga Zepp-LaRouche has been calling for in the particular. The global south actually raise its voice in this design of a new world order. Professor Wen Yi followed with commentary on China's breakthrough pace of economic development in recent decades and its implications for other countries, focusing on the importance of robust support for small businesses producing for domestic markets, infrastructure, and what he called proto-industry. He also made a very useful polemic against the free trade dogma of Adam Smith, emphasizing that markets do not create themselves, as Adam Smith might call the invisible hand, but that they're actually directed by governments for the public good. Retired General Sebald Daum and Lieutenant General Manfred Gratz shifted the focus towards the military posture of the great powers on the European continent and the callous indifference of NATO towards the security of the European people. Scott Ritter, who you all know very well, he gave an overview of the failures of U.S. diplomacy with respect to nuclear arms control in particular, rooted in the subversion of diplomatic efforts by the interagency, as well as exceptions to this, such as the signing of the INF Treaty under President Reagan, in which Scott himself played a very crucial role. After a message of support from Adolfo Perez Escovel, a well-known Argentine activist, which reiterated the gravity of the situation facing humanity, Wolfgang Effenberger contributed a whirlwind historical analysis of the world's failure to achieve lasting peace and stability in the early Cold War, and the role of the Anglo-American Axis in bringing about this failure through initiatives like Operation Unthinkable and Operation Totality. Speaking from MGIMO University in Moscow, Dr. Alexander Bobrov gave a masterful description of Russia's security and diplomatic posture towards the West since the end of the Cold War, the numerous broken promises and deceptions by Western powers which have stymied diplomatic efforts, and the prospect for a new global security architecture based on the concept of indivisible security which was pioneered in Russia. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Bossard of Switzerland then reiterated the failure of Western diplomacy and emphasized the tremendous burden that U.S. hegemony has been to the security and economies of Europe, in particular the devastating example of Ukraine. Finally, Michael von der Schulenburg drew on his experience as a former UN OSCE diplomat to place the Ukraine war in a global perspective, pointing out that Ukraine is a battleground of a global and existential conflict between the world's two preeminent nuclear powers. The final panel of the April 15 to 16 conference on Sunday was titled The Necessary Philosophical Foundations for the New Paradigm, which discussed the fundamental ideas that a world citizen must understand to build and sustain the new paradigm of the future. While it is easy to agree upon the practicality of opposing war, that is not enough. It is necessary for an even higher agreement, which is designing solutions, as the Schiller Institute has been doing particularly. In this case, that is building peace for humanity. But what does that really mean? Those questions were delved into further with our various speakers in the Q&A session. Our first speaker was former French presidential candidate Jacques Cheminade, who went into LaRouche's lecture on the power of human labor and what that means with the advent of AI technology. To understand AI's implications, Cheminade first goes into the question of what it means to be human, which LaRouche defines by our capability to creatively develop and grow our civilization based on the metrics of potential relative population density and energy flux density. This is an ability that AI can never accomplish, since it does not and cannot have a creative potential to build something off of a new paradigm. Only a human can creatively transform the environment around us to meet new needs. The next two speakers, Dr. Chandra Musaffar and Shakil Ahmad Rameh, made their contributions on that exact creative potential that can be seen in the region of Southwest and West Asia. Leaders from both areas have recognized the importance of building peace in order to uplift their people out of poverty and rebuild their country's infrastructure. In the area of West Asia, we are witnessing significant developments towards diplomacy and peace, with the China brokered deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and now there are talks for a truce in the war in Yemen. The world is rapidly developing towards a new paradigm of peace, which is based on cooperation and diplomacy, not geopolitics. Then we had two former U.S. diplomats, Chas Freeman and Graham Fuller, who both spoke on the extraordinary developments between Saudi Arabia and Iran. They both said that this shows the U.S. militarism in these regions are failing, and that there is a need for a shift in U.S. foreign policy, which is not based on military interventions or a show of force, but in genuine diplomacy and respect in regards to other nations' sovereignty. The U.S. should go back to its founding principles of building a community of principle among sovereign nation states, or as John Quincy Adams put it, not go along and seek monsters to destroy. Our last guest, Professor Cord Eberspacher, went into the cause of this rapid development, which was China's leadership in diplomacy, and how many Western nations are completely incompetent when it comes to understanding the Chinese method of peace. These incompetencies are based on their flawed ideologies, which are currently stifling their progress with the rest of the world. The global majority has already surpassed the West mentality on governance and development, which has allowed them to rapidly shift gears towards a new era of international trade and strategic economic cooperation. It is through these actions made by humanity that we are seeing these great turning points in world history. If the U.S. does not want to be left behind in this shift, then we must return to the philosophical framework that constituted our nation in the first place, which is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Thanks for listening. This was kind of Disselthwaite with the Schiller Institute. I hope you all can catch these panels, watch them in full. You can watch them on our channel, and I will see you again soon. Thank you.